We have a young fellow with us tonight who we imported from Greensboro, North Carolina. However, prior to that, he came from way down there, Mississippi. Jackson, Mississippi? No. I don't know if it was Jackson or not. He is, without a doubt, one of the nicest people and one of the funniest people that I have ever had the privilege to sit in his audience and listen to him. And that's why he's here. I want you to hear him and see him. Eugene Nicholson, who was the son, or no, you can't, you is, or you are the son of a preacher boy from Mississippi, Eugene Nicholson. Let's bring him.
Thank you very much, Jim, and it's good to be here. Everybody get turned around where you can get comfortable after eating all them pork chops. Because we're going to get with it, friends. My daddy, he was a preacher, but I want y'all to rest at ease, because this ain't going to be no sermon. Down there in Mississippi one Sunday, Daddy got up to go to preaching, and Daddy come around this curve, and this car run right into Daddy's car and just turned it right bottom side upwards, where Daddy was down in the car trying to get out, and this old drunk come running up there, looked down in the car and recognized Daddy the preacher. He said, "You all right down there, preacher?" Daddy said, "Yeah," said, "I got the good Lord with me." The old drunk said, "You better let him ride me." He said, "Damn if you ain't gonna kill him." Daddy, he finally got that car turned over and got on to church. Well, Daddy was hot and thirsty. Well, Daddy went out to this old open well to draw up a bucket of water. Well, Daddy leaned over to see if the bucket had hit the bottom yet. And when he did, he dropped his false teeth down in that well. Daddy let that bucket down 2 or 3 times trying to catch those teeth, and he couldn't. And they had already commenced to sing on the inside of the church. Daddy had to go in and do the best that he could without those false teeth. Daddy got up there and he commenced to read the scripture. And he said that Adam said to Eve, and he had to turn the page. Well, when he did, 2 of them stuck together, and it didn't make sense. Daddy turned back and said that Adam said to Eve, they stuck together again. Daddy got all flustered and mesmerized. He turned back real fast and said that Adam said to Eve, there must be another leaf around here somewhere. Daddy was just a preaching away there, and he looked out there, and this old bald-headed man had gone to sleep. Have y'all ever seen people go to sleep at church? When you go to sleep at church, you let your head kind of go over sideways where it won't attract too much attention. Well, Daddy said this little old red-headed boy sat next to this old bald-headed man, and Daddy said he kept shoving his head back, and Daddy said that got on his nerve where he couldn't hardly preach, you know. Daddy just stopped preaching, said, "That's right, son," said, "wake him up." Little boy said, "Wake him up yourself. You put him to sleep." Well, this old man, what was asleep? He slept with his mouth open. You've seen people sleep with their mouth open. Well, Daddy was taking these quinine capsules, you know, and Daddy just happened to have one of them in his pocket, and Daddy used to be a basketball player anyway. Daddy tossed that little capsule, and it went right in the good brother's mouth. Daddy kind of preached on a while, kind of give it time to dissolve, you know. Daddy hit down on the pulpit, say, "Amen." The good brother jumped right straight up, said, "Quick, somebody call a doctor," said, "I think my gallbladder just busted." When they got through with preaching that day, it was one of these all-day affairs down there in Mississippi where they had the victuals spread out under the old oak trees. You've been to those homecoming kind of things, you know, with the food spread out under the oak trees. Friends, Daddy got out there, and he couldn't do nothing eating that fried chicken because Daddy had done lost his teeth down in this well. This old man, what was a visiting the church, he heard about Daddy losing his teeth, and he called Daddy off to the side. He said, "Preacher said, try this pair." And Daddy put them in his mouth, but they was too big. He reached in the other pocket, and he said, "Preacher said, try this pair." And Daddy put those teeth in his mouth, but they was too big. He wasn't going to be outdone. He reached up here in his inside coat pocket, and he said, "Preacher said, try this pair." Daddy put those teeth in his mouth. Daddy bit down on that chicken, and Daddy said, "You know, they fit better than my own teeth." Daddy said, "By the way," he said, "what are you, a dentist?" He said, "No, I'm an undertaker." After they got through with dinner that day, this old man in the community had done laid down and died. Back then in Mississippi, friends, just the ones what come to a funeral had to dig the grave after they got there. Daddy said they got through eating, they went out in the graveyard and they commenced to dig this grave. And Daddy said they hit a yellow jacket's nest. You can imagine trying to dig a grave down through a yellow jacket's nest. Daddy said they had helped the service up for over 2 hours, and embalming them's not what it is now. And it being in July, Daddy said they couldn't hold him out of the ground much longer. Daddy went out there and looked in the grave what they was digging. Daddy said it wasn't too deep. But Daddy said, knowing this old man, he was going deeper anyway, and it probably would be all right. Well, Daddy said the ones what dug the grave was over on the side where all the dirt was. And Daddy and the congregation slipped up there as quiet as they could, not to disturb them yellow jackets. Daddy commenced to read, "There's but little peace and comfort on this side of the grave." One of the grave diggers says, "Y'all come on over here. I think we've got them beat off over here." Oh, but it was a sad thing what come from this funeral. This old man what died left this young widow. And Daddy said it had hardly been 6 months since he had buried this old man. And already this young widow was going to those places where she ought not to have been going. And Daddy said she was doing those things which she ought not to have been doing. And Daddy saw her up on the street and said, "I just want to tell you," said, "I prayed for you for over 2 hours last night." She said, "Preacher," said, "why didn't you call me? I could have been there in 15 minutes. My little brother came home from school one day and he had a note from the teacher what said he wasn't doing too good at school. And Daddy said, "Son, the only way that I know that you're going to pass is you better carry the teacher a present." Next morning, my little brother walked right up in front of the class and said, "Teacher said I brung you a present." She says, "What is it?" He said, "I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to give you 3 guesses what it is." Well, if it's a teacher here, right off, she said apples. My little brother says, said it ain't apples. She says oranges. He says, Teacher said it ain't oranges, and said, "You better be careful because you don't have but one more guess what it is." Well, she looked at the bag what he had brung the gift in, and she noticed the bottom of the bag was kind of damp up under there. She just stuck a finger up under the bag, put it to her lips, and said, "Grapes." My little brother says, said, "It's a little puppy dog." I want to tell all of you that you ought to thank Jim Benson over here for selecting this first-class hotel for this convention. Jim, I think this is the only first-class hotel that I have ever stayed in. I came last night because I didn't want to be late for the function today, and I reckon it must have been about 2 o'clock this morning. Somebody was just banging on the door, and I raised right straight up in bed, and I said, "Who is it?" They said, "It's a house detective." I said, "What do you want?" They said, "Have you got a woman in there?" I said, "No, I ain't got no woman in here." they opened the door and throwed one in. This old man moved from up north down the Mississippi to do some bird hunting, and he got down there and one of his bird dogs just laid down and died. Well, he heard that my daddy was a preacher, and he come off up there and he said, "Preacher," he said, "I want you to bury my bird dog." Daddy said, "Look here, fella," said, "I don't bury dogs," said, "I just bury Christians." And this old fella said, "Preacher," he said, "I wouldn't have took $5,000 for that dog," said, "I want him to have a good funeral." My daddy was a bird hunter, and this kind of touched my daddy's heart. And Daddy said, "I'll tell you what," said, "there's a Lutheran preacher lives about a mile down the road." Said, "The Lutherans have a lot more ritual in their church than we Methodists have." Said, "Maybe they got a ritual for burying bird dogs." The good fella thanked my daddy, and he said, "Preacher," said, "you reckon he'll bury him for $500? Daddy said, "Man, why didn't you tell me that was a Methodist dog when it died?" I don't know whether Jim ought to ask such a stupid question as this or not. Are there any Democrats in here amongst us? Would you raise your hand? Put your hand back down. Let me tell you, Democrats, you better stay out of Washington. It's awful what's going on in Washington since this new administration took over up there. I was in Washington just 2 weeks ago. I was telling the good people over here at the table about it. It's awful what's going on with this administration up there. I was in this Capitol building, and I had stayed longer than I had intended to, and I had this urgent need to go to the restroom. I looked up on the wall, and I see this sign what said restroom, and I opened the door, and when I opened the door, there were 2 more doors what said his and hers. So I took his, which was right for me, and I opened that door, and there were 2 more doors what said black and white. So I took white, which was right for me, and I opened that door, and there were 2 more doors what said Protestant and Catholic. So I took Protestant, which was right for me, and I opened that door, and there were 2 more doors what said Democrat and Republican. So I took Democrat, which was right for me, and I opened the door, and damn for went right back out on the street. Where is Ray McMullen? Where's Ray? Where's Ray at? Ray, this boy told me, this tall cedar, I said, "Boy," he said, "y'all were boys once." Said, "I'm gonna tell you something, old Ray, if you'll tell it." I said, "If you'll tell it, I'll tell it." Ray, he told it, and we'll tell it. He said that him and old Ray might have been the ones what started this streaking. Yeah. He said that when they was little boys up near Washington, I believe they was in swimming in the Potomac River. And said they didn't have on no bathing suits, you know. Well, while they was down there and swimming, some little old mean girls come up and stole Ray and them's clothes. And they went back off up in the woods, I reckon, go wait around and see what Ray and them done. Well, Ray and them was down in this water getting waterlogged. And they couldn't come up because them little old mean girls is up there in the woods, you know. Well, he said old Ray felt something under the water, and he decided he would dive down to see what it was. But just as he went to dive down, he remembered that if he put this end down, the other end was going to come up, and them little old mean girls is up there in the woods. Well, he said old Ray just stooped down under that water, and he come up with this bucket. And he said old Ray was a brave old soul even back then. He said Ray just put that bucket right over the front of him, told him other boys, he says, "I'll go get them clothes." Ray walked right up in the middle of them little old mean girls. He said, "You girls, you think," one of them said, "Yeah, you think that bucket's got a bottom in it," but said, "It ain't." one of the most surprising things happened to me this afternoon when I walked into the lobby of this hotel. And I bumped into Bob Lanier. Bob, would you stand up? Where's Bob? Is Bob? Okay, thank you. I just want y'all to know that I know who that I'm talking of. Bob and I was in the Air Force during the big war. Yeah, tonight was the first night, Bob will tell you, tonight was the first time that I had seen Bob since 1942 at Kesler Field in Gulfport, Mississippi. Tonight. We were back there talking about old times, and old Bob said, Gene, he said, you remember them pills they give us when we went in the Air Force where we wouldn't want women? And I said, uh-huh. And old Bob said, you know, they just now starting to work. You know, whenever anybody gets up like I do, they hate to see somebody just stand up before they come on and try to steal the show from them. George Williams did that tonight back there. Talking about these people at his table. I'm going to tell y'all something on George. This boy said he went to school with him, said he never would forget the first day at school. He said, the teacher, you know, the first day at school, the first thing they teach you is how to go to the bathroom. You know the 1-2 deal, you know how it is. Well, old George, she just got through giving instruction. Old George raised his hand. She said, George, it's the first door down the hall on the right. George come back in about 5 minutes. He said, I can't find it, said, I can't find it. She said, George, said it's the first door down the hall on the right. George came back in about 5 minutes, almost in hysterics. He said, I can't find it, said, I can't find it. Well, old John was in the first grade for the second year, you know, and he knew more about this stuff. The teacher said, go tell George show him where it is. Well, they went back down there, and they come back in about 3 minutes. And when John came by the teacher's desk, he turned and said the reason George couldn't find it, said he had his pants on backwards. Down there in Mississippi, these three preachers down there, they played golf every Wednesday. They played golf together, and they would talk over the different problems that they were having with the different churches there in this small town. And one day, one of the preachers said, you know, said, we are such good friends, and said, our wives don't even know one another. Said, let's carry them out to dinner tonight so they'll get to be friends like we are. And that night, those three preachers and their wives were going out to have dinner. And they had to cross this railroad track. And this train run into the car and killed all 6 of them out dead. Well, just like that, they was upstairs knocking on St. Peter's door. The first old preacher walked up. What was Episcopalian? And St. Peter said, I'm sorry, but said, you know, you didn't quite make it. He said, you know, there's been booze in your life. It's just been whiskey, whiskey, whiskey. Said, in fact, there's been so much booze and whiskey in your life. Said, you married a girl named Sherry. Said, you didn't quite make it. Next old preacher walked up. What was a Presbyterian? St. Peter said, I'm sorry, but said, you know, you didn't quite make it. Said, you know, there's been greed in your life. It's just been money, money, money. Said, in fact, there's been so much greed and money in your life. Said, you married a girl named Penny. Said, you don't quite make it. And this old Baptist preacher, he walks up, turned around to his wife, said, Fanny, let's get the hell out of here. I hate to tell this old Samuel over there, but Sam never goes to a convention that you don't look in the back of his car and he's got his golf clubs with him. Sam went off, this guy told me, went off to this big country club. Some of his buddies were going to play golf, and they'd never been to this resort before. And, well, old Sam had a flat tire. He didn't get there, and he got there, and the boys had done played through. Well, you can look at old Sam and know that he's kind of a shy, you know, especially in a big country club he had never been at before. And this pretty young girl, what was dressed in tennis shorts, looked over and said, "Are you here for game?" And old Sam said, "Yeah," but said, "My buddies have done played through." She said, "Would you play with me?" Well, old Sam looked at her and said, "Sure, I'd love to play with you." Sam said they went out there. Sam said he had never shot such a game of golf that he was shooting that day, and said they hit up to the 18th hole. Sam said his ball landed about 90 feet from the cup. Hers was about 125 feet away from the cup. Old Sam got down there to address that ball. I believe that's what they said you said. And he looked up and said, "Honey," said, "let's make a little deal on this hole." Said, "If I make this ball," said, "let's me and you go out and have dinner tonight." She said, "Sam," said, "I'll go you one better than that." Said, "You make your hole and I make my hole." Said, "We won't only go out and have dinner," said, "we'll go out and party tonight." Well, old Sam, he got back down there to address that ball. I believe that's what you said. They said old Sam looked at that ball and it's 90 feet away. Sam said it looked like it was 90 miles. Sam said he drawed that putter back and he hit that ball and it went right in the hole. Well, old Sam, you know, is a kind of a shy sort of fella. But they said old Sam walked over there to her ball and picked it up and said, "That's a gimme if ever I saw one." Take a break. Turn the tape. Fast forward